episode of the Entrepreneur Lounge podcast. Today I'm joined by Jeff and Chris with SentriForce. Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks for having us.
How's it going,
Yeah,
Garrett? Nice to meet you.
absolutely. Yeah, good to see you again. So I guess just tell me about yourself. Tell listeners about yourselves and how you guys kind of got started with SentriForce.
Sure. Yeah, I'll start off. So I actually had a career in the parking industry, the commercial parking, and spent time working with hotel valet operations to hospitals to professional garages to service lots, pretty much the whole gambit of the professional commercial parking industry. And I actually really, we have a lot of touch points between the two companies as far as what the space I was operating in. It's in a parking area. And I met SentriForce through a networking event. We're talking, and really was interesting to kind of see how, one, what we are offering with SentriForce is a pain point or a need that I was dealing with in the parking industry, but it's not something that we traditionally addressed and didn't really have any solutions for. So the property managers would come to parking companies and say, hey, theft is an issue, break-ins are an issue, there's problems happening. And typically, I know as parking managers, we would try to find solutions, but we didn't really know much. So we typically would just defer to whoever was loss prevention for a building or any of that. So when I saw that this was a growing need, being here in Houston, it seems like a lot more people are dealing with theft issues, stolen cars, break-ins. Everyone is touched by it in some way, unfortunately, right? So everyone I was talking to, if I mentioned parking, they almost always brought up this issue. So it was a natural, to me, a fit to join SentriForce and bring this awareness really into the parking industry, which is really what I do. I focus on bringing this awareness of what's out there in surveillance, in security, in ways to deter crime.
Okay, awesome. What new innovations, if any? I know there's probably going to be some with AI and whatnot that you guys can touch on, but new innovations you're most excited to share with new clients currently?
Sure. Yeah. So the industry has been around, obviously, as long as there's been technology. There's been some, cameras. There's been some form of technology out there. What we've seen traditionally has been a lot more of like called trailers. If you go to a Walmart or Home Depot, you're going to see these things taking up parking spaces, a big trailer. It's got a boom with cameras. And really, that's the tried and true traditional that you see. You still see it out there in a lot of different applications. What I like about the innovations that we bring is, one, there's challenges to that. One, they're big, they're bulky, they take up parking spaces, they're expensive. And that meant that a lot of retailers, only the big box ones usually could afford them, could give up parking spaces. But what about the restaurants? What about the smaller retailers? What about professional parking lots that really each space is money? So what we focus on is innovation around getting it off the parking space, installing them on light poles, getting them up in the air, focusing in on bundling what we call deterrence. So instead of just focusing on, people think cameras. If I put up a camera, then I am essentially achieving everything I need to achieve. I'm deterring crime. But that's not true. A camera by itself is not even really the deterrent factor. What we do is we're bundling things like visual deterrence, things like we'll add in strobes that attach to it, like you'll see with trailers. We're adding in a strobe. And people might think that's simple, that's easy. Well, it's very interesting because it's focusing on deterring the opportunistic crime. Next, we're also attaching that with surveillance. And instead of doing a whole bunch of cameras, we can just do one, right, with a 360 lens. So it's a lot more compact. The other part is also adding in behavior modification. So that would be like, you mentioned AI. What we will use AI for is to say, hey, look, we want AI to determine if it's a human being and they're walking in a designated path or direction. It will trip the message. So it's not like somebody just passes by a sensor. It's focusing in on, a car's not going to trip it and all that. It's focusing on a person. It's going to trip it. And that message is designed for behavior modification to get people to do what they should be doing, such as, hey, lock your vehicle, store your stuff, right? Participate in the actual protecting of your property. What I like about the innovation is that we bundle it all in one unit. So we can do it all with one unit rather than having to bring a bunch of different pieces or a bunch of companies coming in to segment each part. In addition to obviously, protecting the back of house stuff with thermal. It's very important that the monitored side too is innovative, focusing in on, protecting your copper wiring from being stolen from a building, which is a huge issue in Houston, right? That could cost you easily $25,000 each time it hit. Not to mention the hit to all the tenants that lose their power. So
Yeah.
focusing on that with thermal and optical to make sure that we are, monitoring it and we're capturing it and we're calling the police and they're coming out there to hit it. So those are really the innovations that I like about where we're headed.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, we've got. I think I want to say it's Ring. I think at my house. My fiance manages it, but yeah, I get notifications all the time that like a car passes by. I'm like, I don't need to know that a car passed by. Like I live in a neighborhood, of course it did, right? So
Right.
no, that's cool. Um, how would you've kind of touched on it a little bit, but how would you tailor different industries, construction, maybe retail, maybe a neighborhood? How would you structure those differently?
Yeah, Garrett. So I think the thing is there's no one size fits all solution for surveillance, and the different industries have different needs, different expectations. There's common issues there's common issues in construction or in retail or in HOAs, but each client may be feeling one of those issues a lot more than others. So to us, it's really about, our team has a certain amount of, say, arrows in our quiver that we use to address those solutions. So really figuring out what the client's pain points are
Okay.
is critical. Do they need traditional video surveillance systems so we can give them evidence after something happens? Do they need actively monitored video surveillance? And that's dispatching police when someone's on their property or on their premises. Um, all of these solutions have applications in each of the industries, but our clients' needs, each individual client is a different mixture of these. So really, our team focuses on the discovery process. So really getting into the weeds with our clients to figure out where their pain points are and then picking which tools are going to help alleviate those.
Okay. Um, Again, let's get into the business side just a little bit. Who or what is your largest competitor or hurdles, and I want to know how you guys overcome those issues.
Yeah, I would focus much more on the hurdle side, right? There's always
Okay.
competition in the industry, right?
Yeah.
Ours, no exception. And I want to be very clear, there's great companies out there, right, doing great work. What I'm focusing here on is I'm going to do with what we and pretty much all surveillance companies deal with on a day-to-day basis, and that really boils down to complacency. We traditionally we started in the construction side, right? And with construction, there is already an understood from our GC counterparts that look, there's going to be theft, probably it's baked into the budget. So usually the surveillance conversations are a lot easier to have in the construction just for that reason. They already know it. It's already baked into the budget. They know they need it. Now it's just who they're going to go with. But when the building is done, what happens after that? And that's where we find our challenge is that the ones who are managing or owning the building or the parking lot or any of the things associated where people are going to for business, theft is happening to them too. It's just not necessarily stealing supplies, right? They're breaking into cars. They're creating reputation hits, and so a lot of it comes down to saying, "Hey, look, we haven't done anything before. I don't really we don't it's not a line item in the budget. We're not going to try it." Or if they do, people oftentimes go, "Well, I only know maybe this one solution, right? I only know hiring a security company, and it's very expensive, right? There's perfectly great uses for a security company to come in, of course, but not every retailer can afford that, right? So that's really the hurdle is getting people to want to educate and understand what's out there and recognize that, look, yes, I know it's not something you've done before. It's adding something new, but the problem is still persisting, and we need to get the ball rolling on getting a solution in there that's going to actually address the problem, as well as be preventative. We deal with prevention, in our business, just like insurance is prevention. This is prevention. It's focusing on, hey, maybe somebody hasn't had their copper wiring stolen before in their building, and so they haven't
Hmm.
had to deal with that mess, and so they're not really thinking in terms of having that protected. But all they have to do is talk to a fellow person who manages a property, a property manager who went through that experience, and they'll tell you, no, you need to have, you don't want to go through that. You need to have something because even though maybe the insurance will cover it, it is a big giant mess that you're going to have to go through, and you don't want to face the tenants when it comes to something like
Right.
that. So that's really, I would say, the hurdle comes in
Do
play.
do you guys know if property owners or tenants get better insurance rates if they have cameras or security systems like you guys offer on premises at all?
So we've actually gone down this road with several insurance companies that we work with. there's nothing, at least they've told us, there's nothing that's like, a baked in sort of line item. Oh, you're using surveillance. Fine, you get this deduct. They have said that when their clients bring it to their attention, it's something they'll explore, and it might be more along the lines of removing exclusions
Mm-hmm.
than it is around giving a better rate, but it's still something that can benefit the clients.
Definitely helps them in submitting claims, though, I would guess. So that's
Absolutely. Having video evidence of what happens can go
yeah.
a long way.
In addition to that, too, also that from the business side, right? The challenge is obviously we get it. We understand that cost is a major consideration, right? People have to understand when, as a business owner, there are OpEx solutions and CapEx solutions to addressing crime, right? Ours is on the OpEx side. So when you're dealing with it, sometimes it's a price tag you look and you go, that's a lot of money up front, right? To own the equipment or to own something. But just like if you're hiring a security team out there and you're paying a monthly fee, same thing, we're focusing on an OpEx side. And the difference is we're focusing on going, well, look, we want to take as much as we can off your plate, out of your hands, getting you away from risk mitigation, risk and mitigating that, getting you away from, putting your hands on something that where now you're liable for it. And we don't want you to have a digital fingerprint that's got your name attached to it. We want to get you away from that and put it into our hands so that we can protect it, not just from deterring crime, but if something happens, we want to be the ones that go to court on your behalf rather than, with that security data, rather than, you're having to go through and maintain everything. So it's also just educating them to understand the business difference between them, right? That, hey, sometimes you need a CapEx solution, right? Sometimes you need installations or stuff, but other times you need something OpEx, you need something recurring that distances you from on.
I want to interrupt this great podcast episode to quickly talk about the Jones Group. Whether it comes to staying in compliance or just understanding your numbers a little bit better and how your business should function. If you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business, you can talk to the Jones Group. It's www.thejonesgroup.us. You can speak with their team today. Now back to the episode.
What are your strategies on the business side for client acquisition currently? So Jeff, I know you're account executive. Talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, this is a space we love, right? One, I think the big part is getting the word out, getting and educating. That's a big part of it. Once people understand what's available, they can do the calculus and go, actually, you know what, this makes a lot of sense. So
Right.
that's a big part. One, from LinkedIn newsletters, staying engaged online in the community with that, attending trade shows. We're very, very, present at trade shows and involved to make sure people get the word out and they know. And it's been great to have a lot of those conversations with people where they see our units and go, what is that? Because they've never seen it before. And you can have that conversation and it opens up. You can see people thinking it through and going, oh, yeah, actually, I'm dealing with something. I didn't know this was a solution that was out there. That's one thing. Second is we also like to partner a lot with people in our space. So we see it as a big pie and we're one slice of the pie. There's a lot of slices. And so we like to come in and when educating people about what we do, we're also educating them on just overall CEPTED, right? Crime prevention through environmental design. We're focusing on, we want your whole property to be protected. We want you to be protected. And we have our slice that we do, but we also might see something. Hey, we really recommend enhancing the lighting. We really recommend maybe boosting ground here. So we focus in on those partnerships with great companies that fit those space and really working together. We'll do things like, lunch and learns. We'll bring different people like property managers together and we'll have somebody that's a boots on the ground company. We'll have somebody that's a lighting company and we'll be there with them and we'll present to say, hey, look, let's focus on all the aspects here to make sure that you're safer. Our ultimate goal is we want to deter crime for customers. The final one really is we focus on really being partnered in the community. So we we're definitely partnered with a number of management districts and HOAs. It's one thing to sell an item online. It's another thing to sit at a community lunch table across from someone swapping stories and listening to what they were experiencing. And at the end of the day, our focus is, to get crime out of our communities and out of our neighborhood, out of our businesses. That's the focus here. And so that's really where we find, our strength is on those community engagements, on focusing on the end goal and tailoring our service to that.
Yeah. Okay. I've got, as you were talking, I thought of someone that I'm definitely going to refer you to. She, not for client client relationship, but I think you guys could be good referral partners. She's also an attendee of the Entrepreneur Lounge, so I'll make sure I make that connection after this. You guys stand out by keeping monitoring in-house, right, as opposed to outsourcing. How has that impacted speed and accountability and the client experience as a whole? Like, for example, like when I have to call a large national bank like Chase, I'm not talking to someone that's in the U.S., right? So how has that impacted your business being more in-house?
I'd say significantly, and you're right, like all of our people who are monitoring sit 50 feet away from us here in our monitoring center in Houston, which is really important. Another important distinction is that we only monitor our systems. So our monitoring center doesn't monitor any third party at all, which means that every feed that we're monitoring is built to suit our monitoring center. So it's all built so that we can have a verification of someone entering a protected premises within essentially cell latency. So cell latency, our people see it, they begin to engage with the intruders. This allows us to do it really quickly, which oftentimes leads to us getting the behavior modification we're looking for, which is they just turn around and leave, which is the best outcome, right? That's like more than us sending police to a site and getting an arrest. The best outcome we have is when someone realizes they're actually being watched and they turn around and run. So by keeping our monitoring only to our own equipment and only our own sites, we know that the wonderful people in our monitoring center are devoting all of their time to serving SentriForce clients. From an accountability standpoint, we're responsible for everything end to end. So as Jeff said, we'll do a site walk and determine what security is necessary to protect the site. We'll then install the equipment. We have a whole asset team in here who manages equipment health and uptime. So if there is anything that happens to the equipment, we're dispatching a tech to address the issue as quickly as possible. We're monitoring ourselves. We're dispatching police when necessary. So from an accountability standpoint, at the end of the project, there's one throat to choke or one hand to shake is usually what we have. Our clients know that after a successful project or issue, there's only one person to talk to, which is really good. You're never going to get finger pointing with us.
Right. That's great. That's awesome. We touched on it just maybe a little bit, but are there any emerging technologies that you see taking shape in your space that are on the horizon?
AI is reshaping every industry, right? Ours is no different. We, at this point, have, I'd say, much more trust in, after an incident's occurring, our people being able to verify what that incident is. I think that that'll change over time, right? The behavior analysis that they're doing in AI has the potential to reshape the industry in that if you think about now, it's very difficult for us to, say, monitor 1,000 active parking lots, because that means someone has to actually be sitting and trying to watch every person there.
Yeah.
But with the behavior analysis they're doing, I could see a future where there's actually, similar to how our systems would operate, AI saying, hey, someone needs to look at this individual in this parking lot right now. So there's a lot of potential for that. I mean, there's also, from a security standpoint, risk associated with that, right? Because then when that comes up, A, you're counting on a system that's trained and implemented properly, so you're not misidentifying threats. But then B, still when a threat's identified, it comes down to that human person who has to interact with it and make sure they get what they need to get done. So I think there's tremendous opportunity, but if we don't do it carefully, we could certainly have a black eye for the industry.
Yeah, it's something we're having to look out at as well. And it feels like maybe every couple months I'm looking into AI tax softwares just to make sure I'm seeing what's out there. So yeah, it's the same thing for us. Kind of give you guys both a chance to answer this. Where do you see your personal growth going in business over the next 10 years? Jeff, we can start with you, or Chris, however you guys want to do it. That's fine.
I mean, I prefer to speak about business growth, honestly.
Yeah, go ahead.
From the helm of the business, we've expanded pretty rapidly, as we've discussed over the past several years. We've managed to maintain kind of the white glove level of service that our clients have come to expect. When I joined the company, we were in 2 states. We're now in more than 20. So it's been a pretty large geographic expansion, much of which has come at the request of our clients. So we've been lucky enough to have the opportunity to grow with some of our clients that are growing. Now that we're there and the footprint has expanded, the next step is going to be expanding our level of service in those states through new clientele, new business partners, so we can give that same level of service to a whole new group of clients and continue to grow through that.
Yeah, I'd add to that, say, in addition, given my background in the parking industry, a big goal for me is really just to reshape that industry with this in mind. It is the third highest location for crimes to take place is in a parking lot. And unfortunately, it's been great to see other places that have done a great job of shoring up and preventing crime. Parking lots have not improved much at all, and it's been slow go. So a big part of me is getting the word out and educating people in the parking industry to say, listen, what has been the idea before, we don't want the liability, or we can't afford it, or it's not our lane, to say all these other properties are doing it, right? All these other people have adapted and are starting to focus more on this. Not everybody, but a lot are focusing on this, recognizing it's a need. The crime's not going away unless we do something about it.
Right.
And so that would be another thing, is expanding into markets, into industries that are a great fit for this and really need to benefit because of the and have not, and be able to expand into that for the express purpose in the end that we see less crime in parking lots, that the parking experience is a safer experience for everybody, right? We can put a stress test to it, right? That can my grandmother park in a parking lot and walk somewhere and we feel safe? Can I park in the parking lot in an area and always feel safe? Versus sometimes, and if you talk to everybody, they'll almost swap some story about what they've experienced in a parking lot about not feeling safe. They feel safe once you get in the building. What do you do about that parking lot? And that's our focus.
Yeah. Well, you guys are fighting the good fight, and that's awesome, man. I think I wish insurance companies could do something with you guys so that it was more, people, owners of commercial properties and whatnot, were more pushed to use video surveillance. I wish that was the case so that everybody felt safer. So I completely agree.
I think it's a matter of time and people getting more familiar that these services are out there. I think if you went back 15 years in the construction industry, the biggest challenge was convincing those folks that monitored video surveillance is a suitable alternative to boots on the ground security guards.
Right.
And, that industry has become very educated about this alternative. So now it's just that process and that timeline for other industries to find it as an acceptable alternative to the solutions they're using.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Guys, this has been an absolute pleasure. I can't wait for everyone else to hear this episode and get to know you guys a little bit more. Where can the listeners find you?
They can find us at SentriForce.com.
Okay, awesome. Plain and simple. I will go ahead and get this out as soon as possible, guys. I really appreciate the time. And Jeff, hopefully see you more at the Entrepreneur Lounge, man. That was a pleasure meeting you.
You bet.
Thanks, Garrett.
Thanks, guys.